Welcome to the Fit, Fueled and Focused podcast, episode number 6, with your hosts Bolts and Hanem. And today's episode is all about recovery. We're going to go into a little bit of detail about what recovery is, what is needed for good recovery, and then our top 5 tips for maximizing your recovery from training and making sure you're getting the most out of your programming and your nutrition. But first off, let's have a little catch up. So, Helen, what has been going on in your life?
Same.
Wow. How's trading going?
Yeah, it's deload week. I've been really looking forward to this deload week. I'm just deloading.
On that, this episode is about recovery. Hanem is deloading right now. Deloading is an integral part of recovery of the training process. And Hanem is actually being, everything has been building up and up and up within the training, right? Volume and intensity has been going up. And that requires now a little bit of a deload to adapt, to keep the adaptability of the body. If we keep pushing through, we're going to have potential of decreased performance, or we are going to have decreased performance, but then potential of having negative adaptation in that training cycle, right? So we don't want that. But the training has been going well.
Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, okay. Good. Sweet. For me personally, nothing different. Training is going well. Strength is coming up nicely, and body weight is still stable and not catching too much body fat, which is good. So another month and a half of the gain, and then we go into the cut. So that should be interesting. So moving into our episode today. And we're talking about recovery. So, wanting to start this segment with prefacing that recovery is essentially stress management of training, right? So, when we talk about stress management, we'll do another episode later on down the line on stress and stress management because it's a very deep topic. But training, diet, that is a stress on the body. And then all life events that occur to us are also stressors to the body. And that accumulates into what's called allostatic load, which is, we can refer to that as like our stress bucket. And if we keep adding to the stress bucket, but we don't use methods or tools or ways of reducing the stress or getting rid of the stress, then it all builds, pouring water into a bucket. You're pouring the stress in and it's going to overflow at the top rather than using methods or tools to decrease from the bottom. So what we want to end so that we're able to keep adding more stress for improvements in performance and stuff like that. So effectively what we want to do is we want to look at the stress that comes in and methods of decreasing the stress when it's time, so that we can continuously improve and progress throughout. So when we kind of look at training, obviously the training should always be geared towards a specific end state, right? And we are looking at applying the stress of training to get to that level of adaptation, and then we want to recover, compensate for the stress that we applied, and then be able to get better and better. So if we take strength training, weightlifting, for example, we're going to progressively overload the training stress towards an adaptation of lifting more weight in your snatches and clean and jerks, right? Or in the back squat or whatever it might be. So we are progressively overloading. We get to a point, where we where we get to a point where the accumulative effects of all of that training and everything else starts to take a nosedive, right? Now this is the interesting part, because a lot of the times people will program in the recovery aspect of training without hitting that mark.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to be able to load the training stress to a certain point. We start to see a little bit of a turn, and we go, okay, now we're overreaching, or functional overreaching, which is in a realm of adaptation. So we start to go up, training stress, everything goes up. We start to have a little bit of a nosedive, and then we go, okay, now it's time to recover from the stress. If we do it too early, what happens?
Not enough stress to create adaptation.
Not enough stress, so not enough training stress. So what's key here is that the management of the training load and variables are focused on getting that kind of dip in performance, right? You want to get to, if your performance is going up and up and up, or continuously going up, you haven't reached the point of functional overreaching, right? So if you do deload before that, it's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Let's say, for instance, you're always planning in a 4th week deload.
Yeah.
Where intensity and volume is down. You're not, in that 3 weeks, you're probably not having enough of a stimulus.
You might, or you might not.
Well, you might not. If you're always programming every 4th week as a deload, depending on how hard the trainee pushes themselves into in those 3 weeks, it's highly unlikely that every 4th week needs to be a deload. That means maybe at high level performance, like when you're looking at very top level tier athletes and stuff like that, because they know how to manage the training stress. Plus they're also doing a bunch of other things that apply very physical stresses. Like if you're looking at basketball players, NFL players, or football players, they train in the gym, they train on the field, then they play the games. And it's a very full on, very physically active endeavor, and then they have all of their other stuff. They have all their life and everything like that. But when we're talking more about recreational athletes or Gen Pop, like ourselves, we have more. You are. You've been on the world stage, but we have more. We have probably more life stress than we do training stress. So we have to think about that in a different context, right? But so maybe professional, the more elite you are, the more frequent you can have a deload, because you need to recover from that physical stress. Whereas when it's more Gen Pop, just fitness related, it's maybe less likely that you need one every 4th week, but potentially every 8 weeks. I've gone through training cycles where I haven't needed to do a full deload for like 12 to 16 weeks.
Because also you know how to assess when you are overreaching and when it's time to deload, right? Because you know yourself, you know what to look at, like signs that shows you that you are getting to the point when you need to deload. For less experienced athletes or people who are training, if you build in a deload week systematically, that would allow them to have like a plan rather than.
I think I've been training enough now that I know what hard is. As well, I know what hard training is. And I know my recoverability. Like I know when if I'm doing strength training and endurance training, like I'm doing when I was training for the High Rocks, I was doing a lot of strength training and I was doing the High Rocks training. But I never really felt like I needed a deload in that, because I know how to manage each one for progress, rather than doing so much that I was just feeling like absolutely exhausted and fatigued. So I think it comes with experience, obviously, but also knowing what hard is.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think a lot of people know exactly what hard is.
Yeah.
You know, you can talk about you could have an intense workout, but an intense workout is not necessarily it's not always as intense as you think. It's a weird one to say, because if you an intense workout, if you do air assault bike and burpees, it doesn't matter how hard you go, it's fucking intense because it just sucks, right? But if you really push in a set of squats, if you really push in a set of bench or whatever it might be, deadlifts, it may not feel the same as a 10-minute AMRAP of assault bike and burpees, but it is just as intense, and if not more intense than
on the nervous system.
And stuff. So you have to have more.
Yeah.
You have to be aware of your ability to push push in training to get to the point where
maybe like there is like some subjective measures that they can look at, like they can like assess their moods, their irritability, their grip strength. What else?
Yeah, the jump. So there is some. So when we I mean, we're looking at that as a central nervous system fatigue.
Yeah.
So the central nervous system gets way more fatigued than the body does. You know, you can push hard in a workout, and you may not feel the physical signs of that push. Your central nervous system is going to be fried.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest culprit of that is like deadlifts.
Yeah.
Like, because of the massive systemic loading that happens on the body through deadlifts, people tend to have a lot of fatigue after doing deadlifts. So we need to set a standard baseline testing, right? So when we're looking at how our baseline is, there's a couple of things that we can look at before we look at recovery. So we can look at resting heart rate.
Yeah.
We can look at HRV, heart rate variability, and those things can be measured on our devices and stuff. And it sets us a baseline for that physiological responses, right? That baseline. Then we have things like grip strength. We have vertical jump test that we can do on the regular before every training session to see how our system is responding on a day-to-day basis.
I had days where I start warming up and you would see me lifting, like start just warming up, and you would be like, "What's going on today?" I'm like, "I don't know." You used to say like, "Oh, it's looking slow, so don't push. Go lighter today. Focus on technique, because you can see that the nervous system is not firing like it should be at warming up."
Yeah, you might not feel that you may not feel sore. You may not feel anything in your muscles. Like everything might be feeling good, but your central nervous system, your brain, is essentially just slow.
There's no drive.
There's no drive, and in days like that, it's usually days where you're like maybe a little bit sluggish to get to the gym. You feel like you need more caffeine. You feel like you need to be perked up a little bit. It's not that you're demotivated. That can happen after when you're pushing through too much, but just on a undulating effect, like daily undulating effect, the higher the amount of central nervous fatigue that your workout gives you, the more likely is that the next following days is going to be a big drop in your ability to be as sharp and as focused. So a couple of things that we do is we look at those jump tests, the grip strength and stuff like that can give us these daily outputs on how our performance is going to be. Another example is weightlift. In the weightlifting world right now, I'm seeing a lot more people doing like muscle snatches at the start of their sessions. They've set a baseline, so they know that with good sleep, good recovery, good everything, their everyday max is going to be a certain amount of load. regardless. And then when they come in and they do their testing on their muscle snatch before they do anything else, if they're hitting 90%, if they hit 100%, they know 80%, they know how the session is going to go. They know how recovered they are. So they know how to then auto-regulate for that session. So if you have a max of 100 kilos and you're only hitting 80, you know that if your max snatch is 140, you're probably only going to be working up to about 80% for that day because things aren't sharp. You're not gonna if you're only hitting 80% of your standard in the testing, your everyday testing, you're probably not going to max out a snatch where it's way more technical. So those things can be having a baseline of your standard, whether that be resting heart rate, HRV, vertical jump test, grip strength, whatever it may be. Blood pressure is another one to measure. If we have, that's just a good one to measure anyways for general fitness. But if we start to see an increase in blood pressure, then we know that things are systemically starting to increase and the stress is increasing. People with chronic stress typically have higher blood pressure. So as that baseline starts to increase and we're noticing a higher heart rate, higher blood pressure, a little bit more grogginess, changing mood, we know that we're reaching a point where we need to have a deload or a recovery. But I actually like to call them a reload. I don't like to call them deloads, purely from an inner dialogue. Like, people don't like to not train hard. They don't like to not train. And when we talk about deloading, often it requires the removal of stuff, and people don't like that. So when I call it a reload or a rebound, recharge, whatever, typically I call it a reload, but that's what we're doing. We're rebounding, we're recharging the batteries, we're rebounding through into a bigger outcome on the other side. So what it tends to do is it tends to set them up for that week to still have a purpose in the training, rather than just, it's a deload, it doesn't really matter what I do. Well, actually, it's week or however long it might be. We're going to be working on several factors that's going to improve the training once we recover anyway. So it might be that you reduce volume but intensity is high. So if you've had if you're in a situation where you're maybe we're looking at hypertrophy, volume is going to be quite large within a hypertrophy phase. In a deload, we reduce the volume, but the intensity can remain. So you might have gone from 5 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions, 5 exercises, 5 sets of each exercise. That's a lot of volume. And then in our deload, we still do our main work with intensity high, and then we only have 2 sets, of the hypertrophy work. So we've just reduced the volume, but the intensity is high. And then we can say the other thing, like if we're in a maximal strength where we've been really hammering the straight, like over 90% efforts, we want to reduce the intensity because the stress that we've been applying is different in both scenarios. So we need to deload for the stress. If we've been doing a hypertrophy phase, but we decrease the intensity, but we keep the volume, we're not really deloading. We're just managing the stress, stressor, but we're not really deloading and recovering enough to make the adaptation. So I think that's an important distinction as well, is that deloading doesn't need to be all or nothing. It can be it's just a reduction in either intensity or volume based on where we are in the training. But it is an essential part based on your recoverability, right? Your ability to recover is where the adaptation actually lies
Yeah.
for the training adaptation. It's not about doing more training. It's about recovering from the stress to get better, So,
To be very simple, yeah, basic, simple. So you train, yeah, you put a stress, a stimulus on the body, yeah, and that's not when you are getting stronger. You have to give the body a break, so the body's going to be like, oh, we need to be handled this next time, but I need time. So that time to recover from the what you put into the body as a stress makes the body stronger. So next time, going to be handled more stress.
Yes.
Voila.
Yeah. Apply the stress.
Recover from it.
Take
Get
the stress
stronger.
up as maximal as possible. Recover. Get better. Yes. Awesome. Now, top five methods for recovery. Cool. So, first one, sleep. Sleep is probably the MVP of recovery for every sort of.
I love sleep.
Any. I mean, sleep is just the best thing ever. Like you could. It makes everything fundamentally better, right?
Yeah.
Food, training, like food,
diet.
mood. Sorry, I'm hungry. Mood and training and energy, like it just improves everything. So, but from a recovery perspective, what are we looking at? We're looking at 8 to 10 hours. Getting in, and we want 8 to 10 hours of sleep, not just in bed, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to give ourselves an opportunity to get as much REM sleep, rapid eye movement, REM sleep. That's like the deep sleep.
Yeah.
As much as possible. We want to get as much as that as possible, right?
That doesn't happen in a row. It's accumulation of small bits of REM sleep during the night. The REM sleep happens more in the second half of the night. So if you get 8 to 10 hours of sleep, you're going to be accumulating 1.5 to 2 hours of REM sleep. If you get only 5 hours of sleep, you're going to probably accumulate only 45 minutes of REM sleep. And then as you said, like the sleep quantity, but also quality, because you can be in bed, but you never get into, or just shortly get into REM sleep because you are disturbed without even noticing it. So if you get hot during the night, if it gets bright, if it gets, if you have an AC on that goes on and off. So you have to take in consideration all the factors that makes the room where you sleep optimal for sleep. So dark room, cool enough, quiet.
Yeah.
And
then maximizing sleep quality.
Yeah.
Electronic sunset. So turning devices off about an hour beforehand, turning the lights down. Just you're kind of, we have to think ancestrally. Like we want to be getting ourselves into a position that creates that mood for sleep. So if we go from blue screens, TVs, phones, everything to just a semi-dark room, and we still got light coming through our eyelids, it's not as effective. We need to be setting ourselves up for sleep success, way before. So about 30 to 60 minutes beforehand, no blue screens, no electronics, and getting yourself ready. The room itself, cold.
We get also dim light at sunset. We turn the lights down. We have blue blockers if you're gonna watch TV a little bit.
Yeah. So cold, dark room. I wear an eye mask.
The room is very dark. I don't know why.
Our room is very dark, but I wear an eye mask anyways because it keeps everything constant. No matter where I go, I carry the eye mask and it keeps everything constant. It's dark.
Put the AC on night mode.
Only if you have an LCD AC, we'd have ours on night mode, so it just turns off the lights and stuff like that. But
and also it turns it down, like it doesn't make noise anymore.
After a while it does, but there's things that you can do to practice sleeping quicker as well and getting into it. Like Helen was mentioning the AC there. We often have like a podcast on, but really it's noise. So we have the podcast as a noise. We're not really listening, but what it does is it just gets us into the habit of switching off and just having and effectively what it is that now for me, my eye mask and the podcast, no matter where we go, no matter where we travel, it's like a trigger for sleep. If I put my eye mask on and the podcast is on, and we have the podcast on a timer, so it just automatically turns off. But you can.
It's like 30 seconds. It's
I'm just gone. Like it's set for that. And but maybe this was something that was taught to me in the military. I mean, I've always been a pretty good sleeper, but when I was in the army, especially through training, you kind of taught to just sleep whenever you can because there's times where you get 2 hours sleep in a 4-day period, but you also get times where in that 4 days you're being transported, and if you've got a 15-minute window where you're just sitting in the back of a truck, you just as soon as you sit down you've got to trigger yourself to just sleep no matter where you are, what you can do, get as much sleeps or naps as much as possible. So maybe that was from there, but I know that when I've got a system, sleep can be very quick.
One more thing that can affect sleep is going to the bathroom too many times. So stop drinking like a couple of hours before, and don't drink like jugs of water in the evening. Just sip. So if you wake up 3 or 4 times a night to go to the toilet, then that's gonna affect your sleep. One time is fine, but if it's many times during the night, it's gonna disturb the sleep.
Yeah, if you are in a position where you are getting into a highly stressed state, and you are reducing your water before bed, but you're still waking up multiple times to pee, that could be a sign that you are needing a recovery. So I think sleep 8 to 10 hours to get as much REM sleep as possible. Cold, dark room, wear an eye mask if possible. You want it to be quiet, but you can also build in some triggers. So there is we use a podcast, but there's like white noise machines and stuff now for people, loads of things that people can use as triggers to help sleep with that. But that's probably the most important thing, because you could have the best nutrition plan in the world and stick to it to 100%, but if you're not sleeping, it doesn't fucking matter, right? So second on our list is nutrition. And most importantly for the nutrition side of things is to make sure that you're having adequate calories for your goal, and then getting in your proteins and your carbs first and foremost, those two things. And then the fats can come in last, but mostly as long as you're getting in 1 gram of protein, 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein, and then about 2 grams.
It depends on the goal. It depends on the activity for the carbs. But the most important, I would say, for the recovery bit is so you want to have the carbs just after the workout. First, to bring yourself down, to bring the cortisol down from the stress of the training, because when you get the carbs in, that's going to bring the cortisol down, and to replenish glycogen stores. So the faster the better post workout, especially if you're doing more than 1 session a day. If you're doing 1 session a day, you have enough time, it's fine. But if you have 2 sessions a day, then the carbs, like the closer to the workout, the better. So you have time to replenish your glycogen stores for the next session. Then protein, it's also for muscle protein synthesis. So ideally a shake with carbs and protein post-workout would help.
a good dose of nutrient dense foods as well.
Yeah.
That the nutrient dense foods usually have a lot more antioxidants to help with the regenerative process anyway. So regardless of the goal, whole food, nutrient dense foods for the bulk, and the animal proteins are nutrient dense anyways. But for carbohydrate purposes, you're looking at your fruits and your vegetables, right? Mostly, your starches do have a lot of nutrients, and mostly, but fruits and vegetables will have the antioxidant, the antioxidant properties. There you go. That's the one. That's the P word I was looking for. So sleep first, then nutrition. Thirdly is active active recovery, or just general movement. For me, my third one, I think is very important to just keep moving. I mean, you can train as hard as you want, and you can try to do as much recovery aspects. You can do your massage guns, your foam rolling, your saunas, your ice baths, all of that stuff. But if you don't have daily movement, then you're going to you're going to suffer more than you need to. So one thing is like getting in steps, or just general movement, doing chores, that kind of stuff, but also movement like post workout. So Hannah mentioned the post workout nutrition. Post workout nutrition is key for bringing down cortisol and stuff. However, if we are not in a rest and digest or parasympathetic state, we're not going to digest and benefit from the ingestion of these nutrients anyways, as much as we would do when we're in that state. So if we're still in a stressed state, digestion is not number one priority. So we need to come out of the stress state. And what we can do is, after training, is we can just get some general movement, low level movement on a bike, or go for a walk, whatever it might be. Try to bring the heart rate down, get everything into a parasympathetic or rest and digest state. And so that general movement, some stretching, some breathing, some box breathing can also help to bring us into that parasympathetic state. That kickstarts the recovery process. Then we take on the food. That kicks up the recovery another notch. Then we're continuing to have food post-workout and later on down the line in the day anyway, so that we're just maximizing as much recovery and refuel from that. But general movement is just beneficial to help the body with blood flow and move stuff around, essentially, right? You're just keeping everything moving so that we're not having these blockages of like buildups of metabolites and stuff like that, which can cause delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, and just general inflammation, right?
Yeah, so ideally post-workout, what we do is we go on the bike for 5 minutes, bring the heart rate down, as you said.
I go 5, you go fucking 20.
No, not 20. And then you would lay down, calm, box breathe for 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah. And then after that, ready for your post-workout meal.
This is why we don't train together anymore. This is why you can't lay down calm when your shoes around. So we want the cortisol to get as high as possible when we train, but then we want to bring it down as fast as possible after the workout. That's the general idea. And then what's the next one? Next, we're going to talk about the passive recovery methods. So that would be like foam rolling, massage, and stuff like that. Now it's later on in the list. It's not as important as the other three, I find, because it's, again, if you are trying to foam roll out aches and pains, which could easily have been dissipated through good sleep, nutrition, and just daily movement, you're just wasting. Like if you spending $500 on a massage gun, or however much they are, or $1,000 on Normatec pants, and you're not focusing on the other three, like sleep, nutrition, and stuff, or you're just training like an idiot, with no sense of direction, and you're just throwing everything in the mix, and you hurt more. You've got more aches and pains than PBs. Then having these passive recovery methods is fucking waste of time. Honestly, it's stupid.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why it's fourth on the list. Now they are beneficial if you have these other three things in place. But massage can be really good to help to bring in, again, just desensitize from training, right? Just give yourself into that more deeper parasympathetic state, relaxation. And the one of the reasons why these passive aspects work is because it's being done to you. You don't have to think about anything about it. There's no active response. You could literally, when you're, a massage, you're literally laying there and somebody is trying to squeeze out all of your, that's one of the beneficial, maybe not toxic, but you know what I mean. You are, so the passive income, the passive aspect of it is what is also, is the beneficial part, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends. The massage is also like it's a variety of techniques and stuff. So everyone, like it's depending on what's the outcome you want. Sometimes it can be so painful that you are more stressed than you had before you start the massage. But that's also sometimes you have a muscle spasm that needs to be treated and stuff. So it has to be painful. But if the purpose of the massage is to relax and to get into the parasympathetic states, it doesn't have to be painful. It has to be just, it's just a touch and the moving the fluids and just relaxing. It doesn't have to be a torture every time. So and then the how do you call that, the pressotherapy boots. So that's also can help with moving fluids. It's just aid. It's not like and then what else did you say? Oh, the ice bath and sauna could be passive.
Good, and we're going to come on to the sauna in a second. But yeah, you can. Obviously you're not really doing anything when you're in sauna and ice bath. So yes, they could be referred to as passive methods.
Yeah. So if you think about like what happened during the training is the muscle soreness. What's the muscle soreness? Is muscle damage. It's like, and then inflammation to repair the damage, and that would bring fluids. With any inflammation, you'll get like edema in fluids. So what we're trying to do is basically moving the fluids faster, so we recover faster. So all those methods would help with moving fluids, like pressotherapy, massage, maybe compression pants or stuff like that. And then the ice bath could help as well, but it depends also like where you are in the training and what's the outcome you want. So it's been there was many studies that shows that it can actually impair. There is no impact on strength though. To be safe, better do it away from training. So some people would argue that the actually muscle protein synthesis would peak 12 to 24 hours after the session. So no matter when you do it, you're gonna have impaired hypertrophy, right? But then you have to think: are you like an elite bodybuilder that's looking after every single millimeter more, or are you just training, for strength and for just for health and fitness and then you can do it first thing in the morning, away from the training, a couple of times or 3 times a week, and it doesn't really affect you, And if you have a big session, and as you said, I said to you, a big week, and you know that there is like many big sessions during the week, and you want to recover, and you know that you had a big session today, and you don't want to get inflamed and reduce DOMS. It actually reduces DOMS to get into the ice straight after. just go in the ice. It's not gonna affect anything else. So you choose.
I,
It's the main purpose. Or like for example, in CrossFit, the CrossFit world is like a competition week,
mm,
and you have two events or three events a day, and you're not after adaptation anymore. It's just want to recover for the
yeah,
next workout. Then getting the ice bath after the event before the next
yeah.
one is gonna just help
Yeah.
reduce the inflammation and.
But I think that you just mentioned, you just said there what I was going to say. And there's a distinction, and we talked about this beforehand. When you are training, you're looking for an adaptation,
Mhm.
and then the recovery assists in adaptation.
Mhm.
In when you're looking at hypertrophy for an extended period of time, you're looking at building as much muscle as possible.
Mhm.
So you want to if you want to maximize it, you're probably not going to do any ice baths.
Mhm.
Like if you're at the top level, or if you want to maximize every single outcome, every single instance of muscle building property you can,
Mhm.
you're probably not going to, because you want as much adaptation as possible for a period of time. They're going to have a period of adaptation. They're going to have a period of competition, and in that competition, you don't need or want adaptation
It's
anymore.
done.
It's done. If you're trying to get adaptation in your competition block, you fucked up the adaptation block. So you want a block of adaptation where you are kind of maximizing all of the variables that are going to give you the best outcome,
Mhm.
and minimizing all of the stuff that's going to interfere with it.
Mhm.
And then in the competition block, you've done with the adaptation, but you need to, because your intensity is very high, you might, if let's say it's a CrossFit comp or whatever, you're going to have multiple events during the days, or you might have long events. It might be a multiple day event. It might not be multiple events in each day, but it just might be multiple days. Then you want to maximize your recovery as much as possible, which is, if you can shut off the adaptation process and start the recovery by jumping in the ice bath, then you're going to maximize your recovery in your competition block.
Yeah.
So
that's
an important distinction there.
Yeah, that made me think of another thing that can have the same effect is like the use of high dose antioxidant, like high dose vitamin C, for example. So it's this in the same pattern. If you are in a adaptation training block, you don't want to be having high dose antioxidants from supplements, because it also can. It has been shown that it can hinder adaptation. But if you so you can have antioxidants from food, you're never gonna have excess from food. But when you get to a competition season, for example, and you're going to be traveling, that's a scenario that would put your immunity at risk. So you can get sick. Having high dose of vitamin C in those scenarios can help you prevent sickness.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good. Nice. Okay. Last on the list is actually sauna. We touched on it briefly, but sauna is going to be on the last on the list.
It's your favorite.
It's my favorite. I love doing the sauna. Don't know why. I guess it's part one of my two moments of solitude where it's just me. Sometimes, most of the time, but
sometimes
it's good.
I come in.
It's just, for me, I just find it really beneficial. It increases my sense of wellness, which is, and we get these benefits from the heat shock proteins, so it helps us to handle heat, and it can increase mitochondrial volume, especially done like post training. But generally, it's just makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a sense of wellness.
So that the sweat, you eliminate toxins and stuff. It just makes you feel good. Yeah.
And that, I mean, outside of some of the physical benefits, I think the most traditional sauna I find is the best as well. Infrareds, they can have their own benefits for certain things, but I don't think sitting in a room of infrared is as beneficial as direct infrared for specific ailments. Where the traditional sauna, most of the studies has been done on traditional, like what was it called, wet sauna or something, where you add the water, the steam.
I think it's called dry sauna.
Dry sauna. Maybe it's called dry sauna. Yeah.
The steam room is the wet sauna.
Maybe that's what I was getting. So dry sauna, traditional sauna, whatever you want to call it. Studies have been done on those more so than the infrared, and all of the benefits come from traditional dry sauna. Right?
I find both ice bath and sauna as well, like help with mental resilience. Like especially the ice bath, like doing it first thing in the morning. You don't want to do it, but you still get into it. It just helps with that, discipline and mental resilience.
Yeah, I mean, doing things that you don't enjoy can build resilience. It doesn't have to be things that you don't enjoy. Anyway, mental resilience is for another podcast. We always have this debate. So guys, to recap on this, training delivers a specific stress. We want the stress. We want the training to deliver a certain level of stress. We want to apply the stress, then we want to have a recovery period to get better, to increase performance. Simple. If we are not applying enough stress, we won't get the adaptation if we go through a recovery process. So we want to be able to make sure that we're applying enough stress to be able to rebound and get better. Things to look for if you are when you're training and to see if you need a deload is your recoverability is number one. Like if you hit a leg session on Monday and then 8 days later on the next Monday you still sore, you can't do the same work as you did the week before, your recovery is not great. So you need to be able to manage your recovery from that standpoint and adjust the training volume or intensity. 2, resting heart rate variability as like physiological baselines, and it can be done on your smartphone, your watches. There's some great free apps out there that can be done. I'll put them in the show notes.
I use HRV for training.
HRV for training. There's HRV Elite HRV, sorry. Most Apple Watches, Garmin's, that sort of stuff do, like smartwatches, they do it automatically anyways. So you can check that out. Then your physical testing, like you could do testing before every session. Subjective measures, that's the one. Subjective measures like grip strength or vertical jump. That will give you a good indication of how your central nervous system is recovering and how fresh you are and how sharp you are for your training, and you can adjust based on that. And then recovery methods to focus on is getting your sleep in, maximizing your sleep, maximize your nutrition, optimize your nutrition, should I say, for your goal and for your recovery with post-workout nutrition. Daily movement, cool downs are important for post-training to get into a rest and digest. And then daily movement just in general, getting your steps in and stuff like that is really good. Passive movements come after that, or passive methods, massage, foam rolling, sauna, and then sauna, ice bath, those things can come afterwards as well. So really, priority wise, as with anything, your top tier is managing your training variables, getting in good sleep, and optimizing your nutrition. Everything else is just gimmicks. You could supplements and all that kind of stuff. It's just you're putting a band-aid on a crack on the wall rather than fixing the wall. It doesn't work. Anything to finish with? Nope. Guys, that has been our recovery episode. If you have any questions, drop them below or find us on Instagram. You can message the Fit, Fueled and Focused podcast Instagram, or you can message me at I am Coach Bolts, or you can search Henems _ lab. Those will be in the show notes as well. And look forward to chatting to you again next week. Every Thursday, Fit, Fueled and Focused podcast is released. If you have any questions or if there's anything in particular you want us to talk about, then drop it below or hit us up on Instagram. Thank you for listening. Until next time, stay classy.